Joe Russo, and you are watching the South Florida Tech Podcast, a weekly show where we bring you the awesome, innovative people building our South Florida tech community. Each week, we introduce you to one of the Sunshine State's top tech leaders, learn more about who they are, what they do, and have some fun conversation along the way. Our podcast is, of course, presented by the Palm Beach Tech Association, a nonprofit dedicated to building South Florida into a tech hub. I am the president and CEO of Palm Beach Tech. And I want to, of course, shout out to our sponsor, Emerge Americas. Each year, they bring global enterprises, disruptive technology, and elite startups together at the premier tech event connecting the Americas right here in South Florida at the Miami Beach Convention Center. And to date, they've had over 40 countries represented with over 250 speakers, world leaders, technology CEOs, startup founders. Every year, they bring to Miami the tech community from all of the Americas together. So big shout out to the team over there for helping us out. Really excited to have one of our board members with Palm Beach Tech on the podcast today, Khalid Saleem. He grew up in Islamabad, Pakistan, and came to the United States when he was 20 years old. He received a master's degree from FIU in Miami and a bachelor's from UNC. He today is the Chief Digital Officer at TBC Corp. Prior to that, he was the Vice President of E-commerce at Office Depot. And now with TBC, he oversees the digital transformation across a $5 billion portfolio of tire and automotive service companies for B2B and B2C channels. So you might not know TBC Corp, but a lot of their brands like Tire Kingdom, you probably do. And, you know, in addition to doing all the great work that he does there with his company, he is a terrific guy that has been involved in our community, supported our hackathon, supported FAU Tech Runway, and now, of course, is on the board with Palm Beach Tech. Thank you very much for joining us today, man.
No, thank you very much, Joe. Thanks a lot for the introduction. One clarification, my friends at North Carolina State will kill me. I went to North Carolina State, so
North Carolina State, my bad. That's on me for not.
No worries at all. They will kill me because they'll be like, dude, when did you change your affiliation? But yeah, great. I mean, you know,
that's
like, funny. Yeah.
That's like funny. Florida and Florida State here, so I feel it.
It's funny. My current CEO, who I report into, he went to UNC. So the first day I met him, I'm like, of all the odds, what are the odds that NC State guy is working with UNC guy? But all fun, man. All fun.
Well, we're getting the podcast right off on a good start. I've already messed up. But hey, why don't you kick us off here a little bit with the conversation. Tell us a little bit more about you and what you do with TBC Corp.
Sure. You know, first of all, thank you very much for the great introduction. I mean, I'm blessed to be, you know, part of this South Florida community, trying to make changes, not necessarily itself for the companies and the corporations that work in here, but also partnering with communities like, you know, Palm Beach Tech and people like you to be able to support and take the goal of making South Florida as the hub of technology. So thank you for the invitation, and thank you very much for the great introduction. Personally, Khalid himself, I would describe myself as a servant leader. I look back and say, you know, over the years of my growth and my career, I've always looked at creating or building possibilities and scenarios that can help my team grow and get to the next level. I always aspire that if I can inspire and help my team, at the end of the day, at the end of the world, I mean, you will be able to deliver something which is not necessarily good for the business, but also something which is beneficial for the team members and their career growth. So I've always looked towards that, whichever level I have been, and individually, I've always been about, okay, how do I help myself, help the ecosystem around me grow? As you mentioned, I spent most of my early life in Pakistan, and then moved to the US to do my undergrad, and then went on to finish up my master's. Did start off with a PhD program, spent almost 2 years in that program, published a few papers, but then it came about time where we were getting married. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do both professional and personal and educational life in tandem in parallel for a little while. But once I got into professional life, it became a little bit too difficult to juggle the two things together. So there's still a part of my mind. If you ask my parents, by the way, they will of course say, when are you finishing up the PhD piece? There's still one piece that you will always think about. Okay, maybe you would have done that, but when I look back at it, I think there is you know a lot that has been done over the last 12, 13 years in the space of e-commerce that I am being blessed to be part of at different organizations. So no regrets there at all. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah, so you were, of course, at Office Depot for a number of years, leading a lot of a substantial amount of the e-commerce work that was being done there. And now, obviously, to TBC Corp. I mean, two very different verticals. Obviously, Office Depot with a lot of office commercial, and TBC is everything cars and tires. I have used Tire Kingdom for years personally, so it's funny that now I kind of see the full circle. But talk about that transition for a little bit, maybe like going from selling office supplies now to selling car services and supplies. Is there a lot of difference to that, or is it just all the same when it comes to the technology side of it?
Great. Yeah, great question, Joe. I mean, I think there are you would be amazed, but there are in fact similarities. Office Depot does a lot in the B2B space. Now, of course, they're not selling tires to the SMBs and and national and enterprise accounts, but they are selling to the B2B world. And TBC has a lot in the B2B space as well. We have a wholesale business that basically does tire selling to the B2B organization, which are whether it could be individual dealers or installers, as well as national and enterprise accounts like Costco's of the world and Walmart's of the world and others, right? So many organizations or companies are relying upon TBC to provide tires, similar to in the Office Depot space. Many organizations were relying upon their office supply needs, technology needs, and others. So there's a similarity when it comes to the kind of customers that you may be catering to. But there are, of course, a lot of dissimilarities about the product and the experience itself. I mean, you are thinking about from a digital world where many people are actually buying things online and basically transacting everything online, and they are getting that item delivered. Or in other cases, about 20-30% of the customer base buying stuff online and then going into the store in the Office Depot space. And now pivoting to the tire world, where even if you buy something online, you are going to rely upon someone to actually install it, right? And most of the customers, in fact, are doing appointment scheduling, walking into the store. So similarities when it comes to the customer base, potentially in the sense of like B2B customer base per se, a lot of dissimilarities in sense of what the customer does, right? And what kind of an experience you're looking for. And it was an interesting thing to learn the differences and the nuances, especially when you're looking at the goal in the previous world would be how you can quickly get the customer to convert, pay for their product, and get it delivered for them, or have them routed to a nearby store to get them, pick that item up in my past life at Office Depot, to now ensuring that the customer can find the tires or the service that they're trying to basically schedule or learn about what may be wrong with their vehicle, and then quickly schedule the appointment for that specific store or nearby store. And in the B2B space, how can you ensure that the customers who are trying to look for the tires that their customers may be looking for, or their customers are showing up to their shops for, how can you make that process simple and seamless, where you don't have to worry about multitude of steps before you can even make a tire purchase in the B2B space. So the differences that I saw is the mindset of the customer, right? uh, at one end, it's a matter of like instant gratification, right? They're trying to basically get something placed, especially in the technology space, like a laptop or like a tablet, things like that. I want to buy it right now, and hopefully it'll be delivered to me in a day or two, or I can just go pick up in a store. To now in this world where your goal is to, because think about tires, especially in the B2C, or I call it direct to consumer space, customers are not buying tires because it's a happy purchase. Like most of the majority of the customers are buying for a multitude of reasons. One, they had a flat tire with a nail in it that cannot be repaired. Two, they have a lease coming up, for return, and the tires are running out. So they have, as part of their lease agreement, they have to basically return that vehicle with the new tires on. Or three, they are basically replacing tires because they're going to keep the vehicle, and then the tires have run out of tread. So those are the three scenarios, and none of it, if you can think about, is a happy scenario, unless you are an enthusiast who is going on a racetrack every other day. Call me in there. If you are an enthusiast, you will be doing that. So you have to think about the mindset of the customer
Mm.
and start thinking about how you help the journey of that customer, make it convenient, simple. The goal is they're looking for the tire, more than likely that matches their vehicle, and then how quickly they can have that installed. So focus on the quick service part versus the part of, okay, I like this, this product, and I'm going to make a purchase of this product, and it'll be delivered to me in 2 to 3 days. To this case, it is more than likely an instant. I may need the tire tomorrow, or I may need it right away because I have a nail in the tire and I cannot drive. So that's the mindset different. Yeah.
There's an inconvenience factor there on the customer experience side, which obviously when you have um, I don't know how exactly to put it, but the on-demand economy has just driven us to this very odd state where we want everything now. We want it just the way we need it, and we don't want to wait for it. And
Yeah.
I've been the guy in the car, having just to drive to Tire Kingdom and get everything done. But now I started to see this service that you guys were unveiling, where you can actually get a tire change wherever you are. I don't know exactly what the frame of that is, but maybe can you speak to that feature and
Sure. Sure,
how
absolutely.
technology has been infused in that?
Absolutely. It's a palette that we have been running, I think, and thinking about the demands of the customers and how they move and pivot toward. It's the mobile vans concept is one. So we have two markets in Dallas and in Palm Beach where if you are trying to schedule for a tire installation, you can basically select a mobile appointment and you can get the mobile van show up at your doorstep and install the tires for you there. And then the other piece is basically the curbside, where instead of you, because you may not be in those markets where we are servicing with mobile vans, instead of you doing that with the COVID piece coming into play, you're trying to ensure that these customers can bring in their vehicle and basically either honk the horn or call ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to be bringing the vehicle, or choose at the time of appointment scheduling as well, where they can drop the vehicle off and move on to whatever they needed to do. And then they will be called back to say, you know what, your vehicle is ready to go to the next step. So those are the key components, that we have been working towards. And the key component, as you mentioned, was convenience part, because the customer demands are shifting. So we have to be staying ahead of those demands. Things like more and more people opting for how do they pay for these services, more and more people opting for how do they want to get these services done in a touchless and contactless fashion. So TBC as a company has influenced and has pivoted towards how do we provide those services in a manner which is secure, reliable, and in a more friendly, in a more customer friendlier way.
So just generally, you've been here in South Florida for a number of years. You've been at two great companies, but how would you describe your journey here as being a part of the South Florida tech community and where it's brought you today?
Sure. I think, and Joe, I would think you would agree to me on this is if I go back 12, 13 years ago, I mean, let's go 2007, 2008, I don't believe, and based off of what I saw, South Florida was ever known as even a tech-friendly place, if I were to put it that way, right? Not a whole lot of companies in the sense of when it comes to, let's say, startups, as well as from a technology standpoint, we had different footprints out there. You still had companies who are doing stuff in, with technology. There are many companies that are still out there, like the Royal Caribbeans of the world, Carnival Cruise Lines of the world, and all that. So don't get me wrong, there are still companies out there that did stuff, but we were not known for that, right? It's just South Florida didn't come up as a technology place; it mostly come up as a tourist spot, right? Um, Over the years, I would say there has been a shift of, especially with the market trends. When I call market, is the people who work. Their trends pivoting towards where can they want to stay. I mean, the new generation that is coming out, they want to stay in a place where they can have fun as well as on top of that, they have demand of their work. They have enough organization, enough corporations, enough startups that are coming up that they can help them move from one opportunity to another opportunity if they like to. And I would say over the last 5 to 6 years, that dynamic has completely changed. Think about companies like Chewy. I don't remember when was the last time a startup was founded as such in the South Florida area, and think about that journey, right? Think about the examples of Office Depot and TBC have been here, and they have seen a lot of growth in the last 10 to 12 years as well. Think about companies like Ultimate Software, right? Their trajectory and where they have landed. So all those investments. I mean, if you think about what the acquisition of Ultimate Soft, the acquisition of Chewy, one of the biggest acquisition when it comes to the technology spaces, right? Those have basically kind of put ourselves at the South Florida area and region onto the market, into the market to be known as there is tech activity going on. I don't think we are there when it comes to, let's say, we are the competition with, let's say, Silicon Valley or even the Raleigh, Durham, or like the RTP area in North Carolina. So we are not there yet, but I think the partnership and the things that we are doing with, Palm Beach Tech, some of the organizations in the South Florida, similar to the Fort Lauderdale Tech organization, and then the partnerships on the western coast of Florida as well. Those are actually helping people learn that there is a big, strong tech community in Florida, in South Florida specifically, that is influencing a lot that is happening in the economy, US one, and the global economy for sure, especially when it comes to South America as well. And companies like TrackPhone Wireless, think about those companies like uh, as I spoke about, Office Depot is there, TBC is of course here. Companies like Chewy who are hiring more and more, right? These are the organizations who are basically changing the dynamics of what we were known for, and the changing demands of people wanted to work and have fun in the same place, where in a state which is very tourist friendly as well as resident friendly too. We have no taxes here. The cost of living is pretty decent, I would say, depending upon where you live. And we have great weather. Yeah, once in a while we do get hurricanes. Don't get me wrong, but we have great weather. So those things have basically helped bring in talent and bring in entrepreneurs who are trying to basically build new things. So and with partnership with Palm Beach Tech and other organizations across, our goal is of course to see how we can take this to the next step.
Yeah, that really well said. And that mentioning too. I mean, you've been a part on a leadership side of our organization and some other things. What's really encouraged you to get involved outside of the office and in the community to help drive all of this forward and be part of the leadership to make these things happen?
Yeah, I think one thing, Joe, I'll say, and I got to give it to you, kudos to you. You have been an inspiration in that space for many of us. I mean, I think everyone would agree that you have acted as the bearer of where do we take this, right? Where do we take South Florida to, right? So kudos to you. You at least for me, you have acted as an inspiration in that space, because to me, I don't think we as individual leaders were paying a lot of attention in this area. We probably were doing whatever we needed to do to run our businesses, and as part of running the business, bringing in talent, and that kind of sort of like spurring that that trend that is helping the South Florida market from a technology standpoint. But we did not step out beyond I call it these limits that we had set up for ourselves. So looking at things like you have done basically acted as, you know what, we can make South Florida the hub of technology. We can make South Florida the place where people would be aspiring to come and work, partnering with organizations or partnering with startups to say, you know what, yes, this is some great talent here, one. And secondly, some great innovation is happening in this market. So those are the two key pillars for me, is like trying to see how we bring the greatest talent in South Florida and leveraging the talent that we already have. We have some great schools in South Florida. I mean, and even if you go a little bit up to Central Florida, some great schools there that will be more than happy to come down south, and many of them do come south. And then secondly, giving them the ability to apply their capabilities across across these companies, the startups, as well as well-known and recognized and well-set organizations to innovate. That was the key piece that basically drove me to start partnering with organizations like Palm Beach Tech and FAU Tech Runway to drive the overall South Florida technology thought process and create South Florida as the future technology hub, where people will be coming in and saying, you know what, wow, this is the most happening place to be. This is the place we want to be coming over to basically innovate and partnering with other companies.
So you basically stole all my talking points, so I got nothing else to say anymore.
Yeah.
All very well said. But since we talked, we hit all the talking points. Let's talk a little bit about you. I mean, obviously you're from Pakistan. You're here in South Florida now. You have a family. What do you do on the weekends? What do you do for fun? What like if you come home early on a Friday, or you're trying to take a long weekend, where would we find you, and what would you be up to?
Yeah. So one thing, the people who do know me, they will tell you, is Khalid is a workaholic. So, for me, I think since I'm passionate about what we do, what I do personally, I mean, to me, any kind of work that I'm doing, whether it was Office Depot or now it's TBC, I basically ingrain myself fully. I call it, sometimes I go even 200%. So that becomes my life. And I know that it basically sometimes, in fact many times, it has impacted the family aspect, because you are so ingrained into what's happening day to day that you tend to forget what's happening around you. But with that said, I have started to, especially with what has been happening lately, but without that, I mean, I have started to look into what are the other ways and avenues that we can, that I personally can help improve upon, right? So do a lot of reading. I'll tell you that for sure. In my spare time, whatever spare time I have, which would be late at night, so a lot of reading and keeping up with technology trends. And then last but not the least, people know that I'm a car enthusiast. So that's one of my vices, if I were to put it this way, is cars. And I think when I was going for TBC, my wife put it this way. She was like, you know what? Well, guess what? Tires are going to be basically a good win for you in this case, because you changed cars and tires very often. So this works out in that case. Yeah, I cars basically are, you can consider cars would be a hobby for me. Not necessarily buying cars every day, but of course looking at them and learning more about them and learning about what the new and the next models are coming up. And of course, driving, I love that. So you can put me to driving anytime. You can tell me, Khalid, okay, tonight we are going for a road trip and we will hit Maine in the morning. I'll be more than happy to do the entire driving. So that's what my family does. Not necessarily, it wouldn't be on the weekends then. So what we end up doing is once a year, I kind of take about 2 to 2.5 weeks off, and then we drive across the U.S. And we put certain stops in there, and we drive all the way basically. So last year, as an example, we took a road trip all the way to New Hampshire, going through Vermont and then coming back. Year before, we went all the way to Denver, driven all the way to Denver, and then came back, stopping over all the different places. But tourism, I would say, would be one of my pastime spends, or something that I like to do. Traveling is something that I really love to do. Of course, it's hard to do that over the weekends, but when I get chance, that's what I will love to do.
What kind of car are you guys taking to go cross country?
Okay, so well, cross country is of course it's you will take an SUV, right? I mean, you wouldn't go in a passenger van. I mean, and generally what ends up happening is we would so it's the three of us. It's been me, my wife, and my daughter, but we will have extended family join as well, right? So you would have the in-laws in there join as well as sometimes some friends will join too. So you would definitely have essentially an SUV that will carry those many people and their luggage as well. And you can imagine you're going in winters. Generally, we try to take a trip in winters because in South Florida we don't get to see the winters, so we are okay once in a year go to a place where it's snowing or it's cold. So you get to you have to take coats and all those things, but basically you it increases the size of the luggage that you may carrying versus traveling in summer. But yeah, SUV is what you will be the mode of transportation during those road trips because you already know that the other option would be in today's world. I mean, if we were to travel now, I think RV would be the best option. But I think I would love to travel with an entourage in an RV versus 3 to 4 people because I think we will get bored too with that.
Yeah, I can imagine three
Yeah,
people in an SUV for
yeah.
a day's worth of travel. That's uh, that's something. I'm hoping your daughter is not one of those "Are you there yet?"
Oh
Kid
no, no, no. She
Okay,
loves
perfect.
she loves that. My wife and my daughter actually love that part because, with our work schedules, I mean, I go back and look at COVID and say working from home basically acted as a blessing in this case because we were able to spend time, much of the time together, at least during the day, because you can have your daughter sitting behind you, you can have your wife sitting upstairs working, and you can just reach out to them for anything, right? So it acted as a blessing. But without that, I mean, it was a lot of times we didn't have time to spend except for the weekends. So it has acted as a blessing, and the road trips basically serve as we are spending time together in a car driving, and even when we are staying in hotels, you are doing that because guess what? You're all in one place, and you get to do trivia's, you get to listen to songs you enjoy during the road trip. So we love that as a family. I can tell you, you can take my family on a road trip any given day and they will love it.
So with that, I got one last question for you before we wrap up, and that is, what advice or what call to action do you have for the technology community here in South Florida?
Yeah, I think one there I always go back and Joe said think there are two things as leaders. We as leaders have to do two things, especially in the technology space. One, we have to ensure that we empower our team and trust them, right? Uh, as leaders in this community, it is very important because if we continue to nurture and cultivate the talent, more talent comes up and they basically go up and build the future of technology in South Florida, United States, and for the world, right? So that's one key piece that we have to do is continue to focus on cultivating the talent, inspiring the talent, and nurture them. The second piece is for technology leaders specifically. I always go back and say, and this is something which I came up with some time ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, where you must have heard the term "data is king," right? And I go back and say I improvised it a little bit, and I said, yes, data is king, but speed is the emperor. And the reason why I say that is, especially in today's world, you have to understand the customer dynamics, customer shifts, customer patterns, but how fast you can execute upon that and deliver an experience that satisfies the needs of the customer is the key, because somebody else will do it, and then you would be basically running playing a catch up game to them. So think about how you can provide incremental value to the customer at a faster speed that can help not only influence the customer from a whatever experience they're trying to get to, improving their customer satisfaction, but also help you learn throughout the way versus looking at a 2, 3, 5, 6 years old roadmap where by the time you get to the second year, it's already too late because something new came up. And the last piece, I mean, that I always tell people is, as leaders, we have to be very cognizant of the fact that we are servant leaders. We are here to help our team. Our job is to make sure that we help the team grow. Our job is to ensure that we take their input, because we are leaders because there is a team. If there is no team, we won't be a leader. So we need to take their input, take their feedback, and apply to our thought process, and then move forward with that. Give them the challenges, give them the opportunity, and let them drive the experiences or your thought processes forward.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for the whole conversation today. I'm really looking forward to getting a nail in my tire now, so I can try out the new service that you guys are working on over there. I do have a Jeep Wrangler that has the old tire on the back, but we'll call the professionals out. I really appreciate everything you've always been doing, from just being there and being a part of the community to, of course, being a leader for us. For those who are watching who want to get more involved, you can go to palmbeachtech.org. You can sign up for a membership. You can click get involved if you want to learn you can be a part of a peer group, or just see what events are coming up that are in the community that obviously virtual now that you can be a part of. One last shout out goes to our producing partners over at Media Ops, the premier global platform for technical communities with brands such as DevOps.com, Security Boulevard, and Container Journal, right here in South Florida, over in Boca Raton. So thanks to Alan, Brian, and those guys over there for helping us out. And of course, once again, thank you, Khalid, for being a part of our team here and for making the vision a reality.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Joe. I mean, it's been a pleasure. And thank you very much for everyone for watching. So thanks a lot. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Bye-bye.